Hi, my name's Jim, and this is a video about abstraction. We're going to go back a little bit pre-abstraction. We're going to go to the Impressionists. And up until Impressionism, art making, painting was about clarity and exactitude of image. It was visual language. And the Impressionists came along and they said, to heck with that. And they just said, we're going to do what we want. And you get really graceful, wonderful pictures. It was free from image. Paint had been a slave to image making, and now it was free. And the French artists just said, we're going to do whatever we want. And they did. And it was a rebellion. They were rebelling against the rules and regs of classicism and romanticism and whatever. They didn't want to paint that way. They wanted freedom. It was an extraordinary time, and it was an absolutely extraordinary body of work that they produced. This is a later Monet. This is in the Museum of Modern Art. It's the middle panel of 3. It's just extraordinary. Same, this is a very large picture. Sorry about the image. I had a poster on order of Impression Sunrise, but it didn't arrive. But one of my favorites. This is Manet. I love this picture. This is a blow-up of it. It's a bit smaller, but just the freedom of the paint. He's not, the Impressionists didn't disregard representation, but they relegated it to the paint. They just said, yeah, this is a flower, but look at the paint. Look at this. Wow, this is fun. And it's kind of the same with Van Gogh and Cézanne. It's kind of the same, except that these pictures are a sort of tightening. They're starting to back off from the absolute freedom of the early Impressionists, and Van Gogh started to tighten up the brushstrokes. He started to refocus the brushstroke, and Cézanne sort of retreated back into image or into geometry, the geometry of the paint. So even though that's still very free, Cézanne and Van Gogh are not this free. So to me, these are 2 examples of the origins of abstraction. Abstraction is kind of a going back into representational issues. This is after Impressionism, I'm going to say the modernists started up. So here you have Matisse, and to me, representation is not a good thing. Paint was the slave to image, and when the Impressionists threw that away into freedom, they produced just an elegant body of work. But after that, artists had trouble figuring out how to make an image outside of representation. It was hard to match Matisse and to match these Monet and these wonderful free artists, not Matisse, Monet and Manet and whatever. Here you have Matisse. So this is 1905, 1907, and 1915. So what you're seeing is a return. They're reaching back into representation for devices to paint with, and it's to me it's a tightening. It's going in the wrong direction. This is wonderful. It is a tightening of the brushstroke, like Van Gogh was doing. So you're starting to tighten the brushstroke, but it's still very, very free and loose. But then back into image, back into the devices of representation, and you've got a literal portrait, and he's doing the green stripe. Oh, how shocking. A woman with a green, yeah. It's fine, it's a wonderful picture. I'm talking about certain specific directions and issues. And even though it sounds like I'm criticizing a work, I'm not. I love this picture, but to me, it's retrograde. It's going into modernism, which is mining out abstraction. And abstraction implies representation. It's abstracting something that's represented. And to me, this is backwards. From here to here, it should go this way. This is Paul Klee. This is a little more painterly than normal. This is a watercolor. Klee is just an incredible colorist. I just love the color. This is not necessarily indicative of a lot of his work. He was mostly more darker, but again, also with Malevich, where's Manet's flowers? Manet's flowers? Where's the free paint? Where's the freedom? It seems like they're tightening up, and they're using the devices, some of the devices of representation, to try to drive painting forward into abstraction. And abstraction gets tighter and tighter and tighter until you get to Ad Reinhardt, which we'll talk about in a second. Here you have Malevich. This is a terrible poster. This is white on white. It's at the Modern. This is white, supposed to be white, and this is like a creamy white, or vice versa. This is 1905. This is 1915. Where's he going? He's going the wrong direction. Go the other way. Go into freedom. Go tear down the image, the representational image, and go into freedom. I mean, they're going the wrong way. Here's Matisse with his cutouts. I love this. I love the cutouts. This is a wonderful picture, but to me, he's going the wrong direction. They're mining out the last possible issues of representational painting. This is Ad Reinhardt again. This is a little bit early. Ad Reinhardt literally was the funeral director for representation. He literally closed the coffin lid. After Ad Reinhardt, you could not paint representationally. His work went from here to almost pure black, very simple images across just two colors of black across with 4 other black squares. This is minimalism. This is the death of representation. And from that, coming out the other side into object is Frank Stella. This artist, Ad Reinhardt, is wanting you and telling you to view this representationally. This is viewed representationally. This is just an object. It's just flat. You can't see it in a traditional representational way. You see it as an object. The stretcher bars are 3 inches thick. It's big. It's instead of image, it's almost, it's just a delight, but it's flat, and he doesn't want you in. He wants you to stand outside and look from the outside and appreciate it from the outside. He doesn't want you in. All of these other pictures are inviting you in. Stella is saying, stay out. Well, we're in the middle of modernism. Picasso is a giant. He was born and raised inside modernism, and he never left. To me also, this is backwards. This is the earliest work here. It's 1915 or so, something like that. You've heard me say this, it's just forward. This piece is incredibly forward. it's just great. But then what happens? Well, here's surface flattening. So, but he's back to representational devices. Modernism is using representational devices and it's driving painting, and it's like, where's it going? And this is a famous picture. It's the woman looking at herself in the mirror, and of course we're looking at her, so it's like the triple entendre. But Picasso is so respected because people are always looking for images, and they're always looking for the puppy dog or the kitten or whatever, even in the nebula. And this is just a general criticism of modernism. It's like, where did the gesture go? Where's the childlike freedom? Where's the innocence? Modernism lost its innocence. Picasso never had it. I don't know what, this is abstraction, and abstraction went the wrong direction. It was mining out representation, and Picasso was painting this while the Americans were sneaking up behind him. And here come the Americans. You've got Pollock roaring onto the stage, and he was able to overcome Picasso's dominance. He literally snatched the crown from Paris and brought it to New York. It's really the first object. He's gone beyond Ad Reinhardt and said, that's dead, let's do this. And even though this looks like a painting and people say, oh, you just dripped the paint, whatever, this takes the past and closes it. This is the last possible modernist picture you can have. This is an object. Modernism was trying to figure out how to paint outside of direct image making. They were using all these devices to fool around and to make something interesting, but they were using the devices of representation of the previous pre-impressionist art. Pollock said, enough of that. Here's proof. Stop it. And everyone's familiar with Pollock. I don't need to talk about Pollock too much, except that his accomplishment didn't go forward. He was taking old news and shutting it down. I'll get back to that. After Pollock, you had more Americans painting. You had predominantly Jasper Johns and Bob Rauschenberg. And they understood the lessons of Pollock, but they couldn't match up the absolute grace. This is the first time that painting came back to the freedom of the Impressionists. So the Impressionist pictures, like the Manet's Flowers again, that was just surface. There was some image there. There was a recognizable vase and lilacs, but it was surface. Surface dominated the image. And this is the first time since the Impressionists where surface dominates the image. In fact, Pollock took the image to zero here, and it's surface. And that's the essence of a painting becoming an object, is you look at the surface. Jasper Johns and Bob Rauschenberg understood that lesson. They got it. And these are just incredible pictures. This is a little overscaled. It's not quite this big. But the what do they call that? The wax encaustic. The encaustic is just wonderfully physical, and this is an object. You look at it and you see an object. The encaustic is just fabulous. It's beautiful. It's the same with Rauschenberg's bed. it's dirty. I wouldn't want to. I'd want to wash it. But the paint and the freedom, the pencil marks on the pillow. I mean, it's just incredible. But where these two artists fail and where Pollock succeeded was that the object itself is representational. So even though Johns was painting in a postmodernist way, he was still presenting a representational object. And it's the same here. Flag, bed. Pollock had him beat. There's no representation allowed anymore. After minimalism, one of the few artists that emerged was Frank Stella, and he's just a dominant creative. He's just in outer space. This is a print, and to me, it is really busy. He was a big fan of Kandinsky, and to me, there's quite a relationship here. This is more traditional paint handling, and Stella has a tendency to be harder line. He's very aggressive. Nothing modest about him. The Kandinsky is wonderful. To me, it's a little overly structured, and that would be one of the ways I would talk about Stella. Is that you've got structure, and the paint is then activating the structure. So that he is putting structure first. It seems to me the structure is overly dominant. It's the same here. I'd love to see this piece in person. I don't know where it is, but again, it's mostly structure with the paint or the surface trying to activate the structure. This is a little bit of an exception. This is the newest one. It is stuck to the wall though. So you've got your freedom, but you still got your stick it to the wall type structure. So again, this is a little more free, but it's structured. I love it. It's just I adore Stella, and he's of the first water. But there are other ways to go forward. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just trying to carve out a place for other artists. Again, dominant structure, and the paint is second to the structure. The paint is activating the dominant structure, and it happens time and time again. Dominant structure, same with Kandinsky. The structure of this itself, it's about 50-50. Here it's just structure, and again, structure, although this one's freer. Really good artists can transcend themselves. That's normal. Picasso did it. They do things that are more advanced than their normal body of work. This is one of my pieces from a few weeks ago, and this is going to, excuse me, try to illustrate what's happening. So you've got paint, but it's in the paint. I'm trying to make it as physical as possible to transcend the structure. And so I'm trying to get the paint out there into space. But here in this picture, although the structure is more elegant and minimal, and I'm not trying to be this aggressive. I'm trying to make the structure more coherent. I'm trying to blend the structure and the paint. And this is pretty successful, but I still don't like the hard edge structure. I'm working on it. This is about a year old. It doesn't have surface handling, which is it's 50% of it. But this is just much more elegant. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the surface less affrontive, less bothersome. less frenzied. I'm trying to blend the structure and the surface, and this is a way of making the structure more elegant and less. It's not, the structure itself is going to be beautiful, and then I'll get surface on there too. But I'm just going to show you one more piece. I'm trying to have the paint fly in midair. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't want the sensation of it being attached to the wall. I don't want too much surface. I want to make beautiful, elegant pictures that approach Manet's flowers. Again, this is an attempt to dematerialize the structure by making it more elegant, by visually floating it off the wall. This doesn't have any real strong visual attachment to the wall. The real physical interpretation of this piece is the form or the structure floating. Now, the point is to try to get the paint back on here without the hard edge. And that's the next step. And so I'm going to bring Mr. Stella back in. Only this time, Mr. Stella has paint in midair. This is the first version I did. I actually finished it last night. It took me about 3 days. I'm not done with the color. I am at this. This is finished, but I'm going to work on the color. It's literally looks like brush strokes floating away from the wall in free space. I tried a lot of things. I tried white. It didn't work. I tried different tones and values in the brush strokes. That didn't work. When I mixed all the things together, I just added some black and I ended up with this dark charcoal. I think the piece works this way, but I think it's really, really simple, and I want to go beyond it. But this is the first attempt of making paint fly in midair.